Is this all there is to life? Answers from Ecclesiastes. Author Ray C. Stedman, copyright 1999. We are now on chapter 7. Obey the king's command, I say, because you took an oath before God. Ecclesiastes 8:2. Can we trust government? Chapter 8 of the book of Ecclesiastes deals directly with an event that reoccurs periodically in the life of a nation, including ours. The state's right to draft young men for war. It may come as a surprise to learn that this ancient book deals with the problem, but it does. And as we look at the passage, we hope to get some light on who is right. Those who carry signs that proclaim we won't go, or those who say it's not wacky to wear khaki. The searcher comments on this in a section that considers how we may rightly view good and evil. We have already seen that prosperity is not always good, nor is adversity always evil. In Ecclesiastes 7, we see the true wisdom can be found despite the phony righteousness that abounds in today's religious circles. But in chapter 8, beginning with verse 2, we will see that despite injustice in government, there are proper powers that government wields. Many will recognize immediately that this squares with the Apostle Paul's words in Romans 13:1-7 about the powers of government. It would be useful to compare that Romans passage with the opening verses of Ecclesiastes 8. Obey the king's command, I say, because you took an oath before God. Do not be in a hurry to leave the king's presence. Do not stand up for a bad cause, for he will do whatever he pleases. Since a king's word is supreme, who can say to him, "What are you doing?" Whoever obeys his command will come to no harm, and the wise heart will know the proper time and procedure. In this remarkable passage, King Solomon himself, Israel's head of state, teaches us 3 scriptural reasons for obeying government. First, it is set forth in verse 2, obey because you're a citizen of that government. This is what is meant by because you took an oath before God. Every citizen of the United States has taken in some form or another an oath of allegiance to support the government of the United States. If you are a naturalized citizen, you formally took this oath when you became a citizen. If you are a natural-born citizen, as most of us are, you restated that oath whenever you said the Pledge of Allegiance. A pledge of allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands. One translation renders Solomon's words, keep the king's commands, as if it were an oath unto God. This underscores the seriousness of citizenship. Because we share the blessings of government, we are also responsible to obey the proper powers and laws of that government. This is a clear implication here that such obedience will not always be pleasant. Verse 2 says, obey the king's command because you took an oath before God. That is, there will be times when obeying the government will not be convenient, when it will interfere with other things you want to do. To be summoned for jury duty just when you're leaving for a vacation is not all convenient. To be hit with zoning restrictions that prohibit you from making a desired change on your property is not very pleasant, nor is paying your taxes when they seem a heavy burden. But it is part of the believer's response to government. Obedience is not contingent upon convenience. Rather, we owe it because, as Paul says in Romans 13:1, there is no authority except that which God has established. Granted, this sometimes can be unpleasant, and at times we can all agree with Will Rogers, we ought to be grateful that we don't get as much government as we paid for. Nevertheless, the place and principle of government is clearly established in Scripture. A sound reason to obey the government is stated in Ecclesiastes 8:3-4. We should obey because the state has power to compel us to do so. Go from his, in brackets, the king's presence, and do not delay when the matter is unpleasant. For he does whatever he pleases. For the word of the king is powerful, and who can say to him, "What are you doing?"